Nation. We're back.
All right, we're back. Welcome to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon.
Boom. Good job. All right, welcome back, Megan. A lot happening. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good, you know.
Atlanta.
Yeah, you know, by the skin of my teeth. A huge shout out to my friend Bobby for driving with me. That's Texas Bayou Hawk on Twitter. He was my company up and back. I drove us all the way up there, but on the way back, leaving right after that game and driving straight through. That's a tough thing to do, man. You know, I think we left Atlanta at what ended up being probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and driving straight through the evening to get back the next day on a 14-hour drive. It would have been tough on my own for sure. So appreciate my buddy Bobby being there for me and helping me shoulder the load of that long haul there. But yeah, made it back all in one piece. Dogs had a good time. I had a good time, save for the outcome of the game. But how about you? How was that trip? You had some drama getting back to Austin.
Yeah, it was. So apparently the flights were, there was like mechanical issues, and we already had, you know, all the flights are sold out, delayed, blah, blah, blah. And so we didn't have a way to connect. We weren't going to make our connection by the time our flight took off. So we had to sit at the airport, and we're going through all these websites. And as soon as you book a flight, it's gone. As soon as you say, go select to pay it, the price just doubled. And it was crazy. I guess people were trying to get home from Austin, back to Austin. Everything was sold out, which we already knew. The flights were sold out days in advance. So we had to pay all the money I didn't want to pay earlier to get a direct flight. Ended up having to pay for a layover flight at the last minute, just to get home that night. But when, you know, sometimes once you get in your own bed, it's worth it, but not really. It's not worth it,
right?
But just we glad we made it home, and we did. And we were in Atlanta, and it was good. You know, we got to the airport so early. We could have slept in at the hotel. We kind of had a little quick breakfast at the hotel. We could have slept in and enjoyed ourselves, but no, we get to the airport all early for a flight that's not happening. And fortunately, we were there in time to like have options, what little options there were. But then even then, our flight didn't leave till, you know, afternoon. Our flight was, which was already dumb, Atlanta, Fort Lauderdale, Austin. So you're going the wrong way. In order to get home, we had to go Atlanta, Newark, Austin. So the complete opposite direction, which made no sense, but at least we made it home that night. And yeah, so that's what happened. But anyway, so I put up my Christmas lights, which is good because I love to put up Christmas lights. And I have a surprise for you, Megan.
Oh, what's that?
I propped up the trees, but I didn't decorate them yet because I know you love that. So tomorrow night I know. So tomorrow night when you come over, I have all the ornaments, and you're going to help me put the ornaments on our trees.
I love it. Thank you. I am all about decorating some Christmas trees. Back when I was at my place out in Manor, I think it was a total of like 6 Christmas trees in the house when I would decorate them. I had a Texas tree. I had a Capitol ornament tree. My family's been collecting the Capitol ornaments. They've released a new really pretty ornament every year since 1996, I think. So my family, we've all been collecting them. And I have this really badass black Christmas tree that I put these gold ornaments on with red and gold trim, which I really love. And then I have my main tree, and oh gosh, I love it. I'm so excited. You know, where I live now, I don't have nearly as much space as I used to. So being able to decorate a tree makes my heart happy. Thanks, Dusty.
I know. And I had at Trader Joe's, I got, you know what? You know how they have nowadays, all the stores do this. Ross, TJ Maxx, whatever, all the stores do it, where they make an aisle academy, aisle of things that you should buy on the way out that you were not going to buy at all, but they put you in these tunnels now to check out, right? You go through long checkout lines, and it's all this, like you're standing there, you might as well grab this, might as well grab that. Well, Trader Joe's is the best because they always have like seasonal things through the line. They had peppermint. It's like wine, like alcohol content of wine because it's at Trader Joe's, but it's peppermint liqueur, some kind of peppermint liqueur thing.
Oh,
now,
okay.
It's supposed to be like its own, like I guess you could just sip on it or put it on ice or something. I thought that would be amazing in some hot chocolate tomorrow. And also the other one I got was something I forgot. Anyway, they look good. They look good. So I'm excited. That's what we have tomorrow night when we do our Christmas. Come decorate my Christmas tree. I put up all my Christmas lights because I look at the weather and I'm like, ooh, Monday, 80 degrees. That's when I will be outside. So I put up lights, but when you pull them out of the bin every year, half of them don't turn on anymore, or they turn on and then stop and then they don't turn on.
I'm telling you, I switched over to LED lights a while ago. My favorite ones are the programmable LED lights that do, different patterns and different things. You can set it on your phone and don't
I
have to
them all
worry about it.
inside the house now, but
Yeah, my outdoor ones went LEDs years ago just for that very reason, trying to figure out, that one light bulb that's taken out half of your lights it is not worth it. I don't have that kind of patience. I would rather set the lights on fire rather than trying to figure that crap out. So yeah, I applaud your patience for that. CB,
well,
thanks, man.
I've been still going to my boxing gym every day, so I've been taking my stress out on my boxing class, which is really good. And you're loving your new job, yes?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Well, loving might be a stretch, but it's I love the people. I love the people. Let me
Good.
tell you that. It's been good. And I do feel like I'm at a place that I can affect some change, which is a good feeling. It's just, getting into the groove of things, figuring life out. And I'll tell you, after working from home for 6 years, being back in the office is a bit of an adjustment. But hey, we are here. Want to give a quick shout out to CB, man. Thanks for joining us. We always appreciate your insight and you being here. And yeah, dude, justice for Mookie. We will talk about this coming up. We've got a lot.
First topic, justice for Mookie is our first topic.
It is. We've got a lot to talk about for sure. We are going to be covering, justice for Mookie, where postseason awards for Texas players. We're going to talk about what happened at the SEC championship game. What went right, what went wrong, and where do we go from here? We're going to be talking college football playoffs, championship games, and looking forward into the future, as well as some stories around sports. So we appreciate y'all being here. We appreciate y'all joining in. As always, we encourage y'all to be a part of the conversation. We love it when you jump in and give us your thoughts, your questions, and your musings. Hey, Rick, man, it's good to see you. We appreciate you being here as well. It's our buddy, Rick. We love you, dude. So yeah, again, join us in. We are Fire the Cannon. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. We are Fire the Cannon podcast on Instagram and Twitter, or X as the new kids call it. We are Fire the Cannon, followed by the number one.
Nobody calls
I know.
it.
I feel like that's a pretty good gauge. If you call it X, you've already got a strike against you. I feel like I'm judging you on the inside if you call it X. It's Twitter or nothing for me. So
tonight, this is kind of funny. So tonight, Nadia has this opportunity to play some good rugby, and just this week she forwarded the email to me that says by Friday she has to have all this video of her doing this Bronco. So 20 and back, 40 and back, 60 and back 5 times. And then all these drills with cones, and we needed 5 people at one time to get this drill done. So she had to recruit some friends, some really great friends, to come and stay with her. And one passes, one catches, one times, one films. It has to be filmed from a certain angle. All this stuff she had to do. And so I was out there with her, and I got tackled today over and over, and and that's all on video. I was like, well, I guess I'm the dummy. I had to let her tackle me today, but yeah, we've been going and going. So I understand
the things you do for your kids, huh?
And she's now bigger than me, right? So she laid me out a few times, and I think she probably liked it. But the reason I was going to say that is because her friends that were so sweet to come and hang out and help. A couple of friends, I had drove one of them home and then one of them back to the school. And it's funny to hear them talk, like the young kids, like, oh, that's Sigma. Oh, that's straight this. Oh, that's period. Like the way they talk, like Sigma.
Yeah,
so like,
I have officially,
because they're not on Twitter. I don't know if they call it X or Twitter because they're not on Twitter. I don't know what they call it. Anyway, yeah. So
I've officially hit that age that I don't understand kids talking. I just don't. The Sigma and the skibbity and all that. I'm too old for that crap. I have no idea what they're saying. Yeah, I'm out. I'm out.
All right. Speaking of no idea what they're saying, here is the all SEC team. Texas with 7 players on the different teams. Of course, Jahdae Barron, finalist and favorite for the Thorpe Award, is listed. Of course, Kelvin Banks, top 5-10 draft pick, even though he's been out with an injury. He's been so consistent the entire year. I was surprised to see Quinn Ewers as second team quarterback, but that's good. Anthony Hill should have been first team. Gunnar Helm, first or second is fair, but Trey Wisner, fantastic, because he wasn't supposed to be a starter, and he's third. He made an all-SEC team. And then Makuba should have been way higher. Makuba's been fantastic. But who's missing, Megan?
Let's talk about the snub. Mookie. Why? Listen, Taft was one of the highest rated safeties out there. His numbers outranked everyone in the SEC. More tackles for losses, more stops, more. How he wasn't even mentioned is insane to me. That is something that just does not compute in my brain. I don't know, man. Like, what do you think it was? What do you think was keeping him out of this conversation?
I have no idea. This is from Jade Barron that says that we wouldn't be a top defense in the country without Taft. 61 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, including 2 sacks, like fumble recoveries, interceptions, pass breakups, like all these stats he's accumulated. And like you said, he is consistently graded as one of the top DBs, and he has been the number 1 graded DB in the SEC. And consistently. And how do you take that and not even give him a nod on one of the teams?
Right.
Yeah.
And,
Gunnar Helm wasn't having it either.
I saw this out there. Somebody said, can you name 16 better safeties than Taft? Can you? In the SEC?
No.
There aren't 16 better. That's how many places there were for him to not make, right? First, second, and third team. It just doesn't make any sense. It absolutely is a snub. Hopefully, he takes that. Mookie is a guy that takes things in stride. We know that he gets motivated pretty easily. And I think this is just going to be one of those chip on his shoulders. I don't think he's going to hang his head about it. The team knows who he is. The team knows what he did. Texas fans know what he did. People that know ball know who Michael Taft is and what he did. So it's silly. It feels lopsided. It feels biased, but what can you do about it? I love it. Just more motivation. Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
It is a travesty, though. I don't know why he's overlooked. I mean, we can guess, but I don't know why he's so disrespected. The numbers speak for themselves. Right. It's not fair. We saw Anthony Hill put his numbers head to head with Stutzman, OU Stutzman, and Hill had better numbers. Hill should have been a finalist for the Butkus Award. Like, these things that don't make sense, and whether they have to wait for people to pay their dues and be juniors and seniors before they give them more respect. But I don't know why Taft's not getting respect. He's, now draft eligible, and they're still not going to give him any love.
Yeah, it just seems like at best an oversight, at worst an absolute intentional snub. I don't know. I think there is some Texas bias out there, right? We're seeing a lot of folks fussing about Texas and the SEC making the championship game their first year. I wouldn't doubt if this wasn't just a little bit of bitterness about Texas being so good. Again, especially on defense, man. You can't look at Texas defensive numbers and argue that there was a consistently better team on defense in the SEC than Texas. The numbers don't add up. So, you live with it, you take it in stride, you move on, use it as motivation, hopefully, and we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, CB, this is a good question too. No Colin Simmons on there was another surprise. Although I do think he is going to get Freshman of the Year awards. But still, you would think that if he's going to be honored as one of the best freshman newcomers, that he would at least get a sniff at one of the teams for all SEC. But I don't make the rules. I just bitch about them.
I mean, it is the SEC is, loaded with NFL talent at all positions, deep. So but still, when you are statistically the highest rated at your position week after week after week, at least in the top 5 every week, and to be completely snubbed on any of the teams when Taft and Jade Barron have been the most consistent DBs. All right, so let's move on. Heartbreaking news in the injuries report. So first, let's start with Jonathan Brooks, who just a year ago, we know at TCU last year, he tore his ACL. He's still because of this production and potential, he was still drafted as the first running back off the board. To the Carolina Panthers. He worked his way back, got off the injury list, played last week for the first time, and this weekend, a non-contact injury.
Yeah.
Torn ACL again.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to watch. If you had seen the video, he just went to plant, and you could see that knee take that kind of jarring hit. And
I have the video. Really, do you want to see it?
Yeah, let's play it. I mean, it's
the second-round pick out of Texas, and he goes right down to the deck.
See on the cut right there, he tries to make that jump cut to the outside, and then
I mean, you could tell it was
wrong.
I mean, it was when you watch it, it was pretty clear what happened. And yeah, man, your heart just goes out from with all the work and all the time that he's taken and all the patience he's shown to come back and make that NFL start, just to suffer another setback like that. That's really frustrating for him. I'm sure it's hard to watch and hard to see for him, for sure. And then again, we were just talking about this. Demo unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury that requires surgery. So a couple of Longhorns out there certainly making a name for themselves in the NFL. And right as they're getting some steam, especially Demo, man, he was starting to get some steam, really becoming a playmaker for the Cowboys on a team that hasn't had a lot to cheer about recently. Demo was one of those bright spots for the Cowboys. And and this is an intense injury. This isn't just an ACL. This is ACL, MCL, and PCL. So literally all of the ligaments in his right knee are torn. That kind of rehab, man, that's intense surgery. That's intense rehab. I have no doubt he'll be back. Demo's one of the more determined guys out there, but you just hate to see it for him. You really do.
Yeah, we know last year he got injured preseason with the Cowboys and didn't get to play the regular season. He comes back. He has been dominating on the field, impactful. Even in this game yesterday, very impactful. You know, somebody on Twitter said, I woke up and the first thing I thought about was hoping DeMarvion Overshown doesn't become one of the greatest what-if stories of all time. And his response was, guarantee I won't.
Yeah,
so
man.
Mindset you hope they have, going into this kind of a start. And he knows how difficult the rehab is. And now it's going to be even more.
Yeah, absolutely. CB, thanks for that heads up. Right now, the estimation is that he won't be back until the 2026 season. So that is a long haul, a lot of rehab ahead of him, but we have every confidence that he can come back and make that come back stronger than ever. So we're wishing the best for both of them. Of course, we never want to see Longhorns hurt. Never want to see anybody hurt, but hurts a little bit extra when it's a Longhorn. So good luck to both of those guys.
Micah Parsons, he had an emotional video talking about DeMarvion. I'll show you that.
Dog, I cried. It's like my little bro. Like, he don't deserve that either. He really don't. So, just to understand what he's going to have to go through and to be there for him physically, mentally, is just so challenging because he's so talented. The year he was having, I mean, I really just don't think that's fair either.
Yeah, it's sad. The Cowboys shared a photo saying, we're all behind you, Demo. And then his elementary school, ARP ISD, is having, it looks like all the ISD is having all the students and staff wear Dallas Cowboys or blue and white or DeMarvion jersey shirts. I'm sure we'll see some Longhorn gear to support their ARP Tiger. How cool is that?
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you love it. That's awesome for sure.
Yeah. So good luck to Brooks and we know Jatavian Sanders update too? Like the Longhorns are taking some hits in the NFL, and it's
that's one that worries me, honestly. Usually you get updated pretty quick on what's happening. We know he was released from the hospital, but there hasn't been any update on is he in concussion protocol? Is he, or at least none that I've seen. Hasn't been any updates.
But
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
One last top kind of Texas sports story, and then we'll move to some transfer portal talk, and then we'll get to that Texas Georgia game that we were at. The big one. So Texas volleyball, congratulations, going to the Sweet 16. They get to go to State College, Pennsylvania in the middle of December. That sounds amazing. In their bracket is two other schools. I don't know those logos. Oh, Creighton.
Yeah.
And then I can't even see what that says. And then Penn State and Texas. Friday. I know that's Creighton because Friday at 12 noon our time, Austin time, the Texas will play Creighton, and then the two winners will play in the semifinal on December 19th, and then the finals later are December 22nd. So
right, and that's Marquette. That's Marquette as the other.
Okay, we should know that because of Shaka Smart.
Yeah, we should.
We should know that. All right. So let's talk a little bit just for a few minutes about the transfer portal. The transfer portal opened. Everybody knows it opened on Monday. They're always shifting around the dates because high school signing and this and that. And now it's this cluster mess of some teams are preparing for playoffs right now. A lot of teams, 100 teams or so feels like it, are preparing for 60-something teams are preparing for big bowl games. And in this time, they have players that need to know, do I stay and hang out and prepare my team for a playoff or a bowl game, or do I go ahead and find my next spot? So let's look at the players from Texas so far that have entered their name in the transfer portal. And there might have been another one or two in the last few hours, but we know Jonte Cook signed off from the team a couple weeks ago. Aaron Bryant, defensive line, Jere Bledsoe, defensive line, Darian Gillette, linebacker, Tia Savea, defensive line, and Javion Cole, cornerback. I saw that just a few hours ago. So maybe potential depth there, but not really any key starters right now. So that's a good sign that the starting, 22-ish are ready and preparing for the playoffs. Is there anything that struck you as interesting there about the names that came up, or does that make sense to you?
Akana was another one that had mentioned that he was going to hit the portal.
Yes, Akana. Yes.
And that one, not quite as surprising. I think we're seeing, his sister's graduating. And so I think that's really kind of what anchored him there at Texas, especially given the talent that's coming in. Looking at this, I mean, we already knew about Jonte Cook. I can't really say that my socks are knocked off by any of these. It's unfortunate. Of course, you wish these kids the best wherever they go, but I will tell Texas fans, and I think we all should take some solace in this, attrition is going to happen. When you're running a really good program and you've got great recruiting and you're killing it in the transfer portal, attrition's going to happen. I don't think this is any kind of sign that we need to worry. Again, there's a difference between people jumping ship and mass exodus of a program and some guys that just aren't slotted to get much playing time coming in, especially with really highly skilled and highly rated players coming in their positions.
Mm-hmm.
For me, looking at this situation at Texas, there's absolutely no red flags, nothing to be worried about from Texas fans. Just, really not too many surprises here, I don't think. Was there anyone that jumped out at you that you thought, gosh, I didn't see that one coming?
No, I would be more surprised if there were key starters that were jumping ship. They can leave for lots of reasons. They could be hoping to get better playing time. Maybe they want to get closer to home. Some kids move away, to go try an adventure, but they realize they need to be closer to home, or lots of reasons. Or just buried in the depth chart, and they still are. I mean, we're still talking about 3, 4, 5, even Jonte Cook, 5-star players that could go start at a lot of schools right away. And if they don't fit for whatever reason, fortunately, we've had a pretty consistent coaching staff. So that affects a lot of times too, when coaching staffs come and go, then players may not fit a new system or not click with their new, position coach or whatever. So this is probably just mostly buried on the depth chart, and they have a new fresh opportunity to go earn a starting spot at another program. So all we can do is wish them the best. Yes, CB, I agree. It is healthy attrition. It's going to happen. If we had, like everyone always wants to say, Arch Manning in the transfer portal, then we might panic a little, but that's not happening. So one of last year's transfer portal, for a very healthy reason, was Malik Murphy, right? We saw Malik Murphy, he was going to be behind Arch probably. He got behind Quinn. He balled out at Duke. He brought them to a winning season, and it was a key reason that they fought back in a lot of those games to win. They beat Florida State for the first time ever. All these things led by Malik Murphy. He's now in the transfer portal as well. So I think that I think this is like a healthy way. Like he's just so in demand now. Like he proved that he's developed. He proved what he can lead a team. And now they're saying, On3's reporting that it could be Auburn or Miami. So, whoo, that's
yeah.
Malik. He's in demand. He's going to get some NIL, more
Yeah.
NIL.
This one surprised me a little bit with the success that Malik had at Duke this year. I'm a little surprised he doesn't want to stay in the system and expound upon that. But to your point, he is high in demand. He has proved not only what all Texas fans knew. He is a quality quarterback that can manufacture wins, really rally a team behind him. He is a guy that you want leading your program. So
absolutely.
With that in mind, good for him. If he can shop around and maybe make a little money out there and have a chance at a title, yeah, I mean, good for him. I once again, I was a little surprised by it, but when you think about it some more, you're going, okay, yeah, that actually makes sense for him. And listen, I will always be a Malik Murphy stan. There is zero question till I die. I love me some Malik Murphy. So excited to see what his next chapter brings and where he goes for sure.
All right. So what do you think about the timing of the transfer portal? I know, like we mentioned a few minutes ago, there are teams that are like really right now prepping and preparing with finals, and they have to decide, am I going to stay with my team through, maybe a big bowl game or a playoff, or am I going to not play with my team and look for my own better future? We saw Arizona State coach saying he's going to let them enter the transfer portal and stay with the team and do the work and commit with the team, but also not commit, have 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out the door. We know Sark doesn't have that policy. Sark says if you put your name in the portal, good luck.
And I get it. I get it. I do. I understand. But I also, on one hand, I do appreciate what the ASU coach is doing. And I say that because this is one aspect, in my opinion, of college football that is absolutely broken. It is absolutely ludicrous to have the deadline be smack dab, especially in a playoff day and age with so many extra games, the postseason going for so long. It is absolutely ludicrous in my mind to force a player to have to choose between finishing out the season and supporting his team and helping them in postseason and announcing, right? So I appreciate what the ASU coach is doing. For example, again, I'll use Malik Murphy as a perfect example. Him entering his name into the transfer portal, to me, was no way, shape, or form a knock on the Texas program. He was leaving in good standing. It's not like he was saying, F you, I'm out, right? This was a moment for him where he had to make a decision. And it wasn't that he didn't want to support Texas. It's not that he wouldn't have been there. He did a lot for us last year, but he had to make that call. And due to Sark's policy, which I also understand, he was unable to be there to support the team if and when they needed him because of this crazy deadline for the portal. So look, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. I think college football is hurting itself, and it's just a bad look. How much does it hurt, college football in general and the perception if you move the portal deadline back a couple of weeks, right? Like, get through the playoffs, kind of figure that out. I think this is also lending its hand to just having kind of shitty bowl games. We know we're excited for the extended playoffs. We know those 12 games are going to be highly watched. People are excited about that, but there's still a lot of other football. And Rocky, I think you have this same attitude. We will watch football if it is on. Doesn't have to be the best football out there, but for me, it's really disappointing when you see so many guys sitting out and some of them being forced to sit out because of this portal deadlines. That's something that you can address and change and take that one, piece that makes it suck a little bit more away. Why the heck aren't they doing it? It just seems like an asinine deadline to me.
Well, I think the issue is before, when the deadlines were moved around, a lot of high school kids were saying they were being overlooked because they were missing opportunities to sign because they could just go get an experienced, developed player in the portal. So they made the high school, we saw last week was early signing day. Texas right now with the #1 class.
Right.
We saw early signing day. So that the high school, future athletes, they have an opportunity to sign their spots and secure their spots. And then the coaches can take what they see they have, what gaps they have, who they think is returning, who's graduating, what injuries they have, all those things. And then the signing day. And I think the issue is because the bowl games are happening, but there's also, you have to get kids on campus before January 18th or whatever probably 10 days after that, they need to be in a class, but they're already behind, right? So during the holidays and bowl games and all that, you have college students who now are starting the recruiting process all over. But this time, instead of having 2 or 3 years of really being recruited, they have 2 or 3 days, maybe a week or two to get everything done. So there's just no, even if you pushed it back, they wouldn't get to campus on time. And then all the things that spiraled, I don't know how they overlap it and take care of the high school and take care of the transfer students and have the coaches prepare their teams for big time playoffs or bowl games. That's tough. That's tough. I don't know how they solve it all, right?
Yeah, it's a tall order, but I have a feeling where billions of dollars are involved, an answer could be found.
All right. So let's say hi. Evening all. Miracle Martinez. Hello. Randy says, I see you ladies. Keep grinding. Thank you. There's not a starter that hits the portal yet besides Cook, but we will lose 5 or 6 more. Absolutely. We saw Oklahoma had 10 in the portal like day 1 or something. So other schools do have big, portal. I think Virginia Tech had like 20. I don't even know how many. They had a bunch. There's big schools. Some schools are going to lose a lot. We're fortunate that this, like CB called it, healthy attrition. Sometimes get recruited over. Sometimes they need to go find a better spot. They're still talented athletes that, you just wish them all the best. So, all right, Megan, let's get into the SEC championship game. I know everybody wants to talk about that game. So my score prediction was 24-19, but I had Texas winning, and it was 22-19, and Texas did not win.
Yeah, you were pretty close.
I was pretty close. I knew it'd be low scoring because there was 2 good defenses. All right, let's talk about the TV numbers real quick. So this is from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. 16.6 million viewers at this game, peaked at 19.7. This is the most watched college football game of the year. Of course it is. Texas and Georgia rematch, SEC championship on the line. It was the midday game, all the things. But it's also the most watched SEC championship since 2014. You're welcome, SEC. You're welcome. Texas brand, bringing the brand with us, pretty good.
Yeah, I love this kind of stuff. Listen, I know that a lot of people call Texas fans arrogant, and I'm not necessarily arguing with them because this is why, right? I think it's a tale of 2 conference championships that just highlight the brand that is Texas. Or see the SEC championship game with the highest viewership since 2014, like you mentioned. And on the flip side of that as well, you look at the Big 12 championship. We were watching that as we were leaving Atlanta or getting ready to leave Atlanta. And listen, for as much bitching and good riddance posturing as Brett Yormark said especially about Texas, but certainly about Texas and Oklahoma, I don't know if you saw pictures of that of the Cowboys Stadium during the Big 12 championship, but there weren't a whole lot of people there. It was a pretty empty stadium.
Looks like the Cowboys game last night.
Look, I appreciate that those 2 schools have a different kind of fan base than Texas does, but I don't want to hear nothing from nobody about the Texas brand and bitching about Texas being there, because Texas brings eyeballs, Texas brings money, Texas brings the brand. To me, there's just no better comparison. There's no better just stark contrast of those 2 things next to each other, looking at the numbers for all of them. So listen, pat yourself on the back, Texas, for being the brand, knowing who we are, making the championship game in that first year. Okay, now stop patting yourself on the back because we got some shit to talk about.
Oh, yeah. All right. So first, we'll do our key takeaways from the game. We'll listen to Sark's post-game press conference, and we'll talk about a little bit the offense. Is there a controversy there? Then we'll talk about the defense and highlight some of our favorite players there. Special teams. Some of us say that's why we lost the game. And then we cannot talk about this game without talking about the referees. We can't. We have to talk about the referees. And then we'll do our 3, 2, 1. We always like to give 3 good things, two bad things and one that the team can grow on, right? And then so we'll, keep it positive. And then we have what would Texas would have won if, right? I want you to tell me Texas would have won this game if. I'll give you mine, and then we'll wrap up some final thoughts about this game, and then we'll talk bigger college football brackets because the playoffs are set. All right, so let's start, Megan, with Sark's comments on on the post game comments, and we'll listen to that real quick, and then we'll discuss what he had to say after. It just breaks my heart.
Players. Okay, so first of all, this is a life of a competitor. Okay, you get into this arena, you compete at the highest level against quality opponents. There's going to be sways and flows in a ball game that are sometimes go your way, sometimes don't. And I think the challenge in games like this is to maximize the opportunities when you get them. And in the first half, we had some great opportunities, and we just couldn't capitalize the way we would have liked. Clearly, the penalties were an issue in the first half, where we stalled out on some things and gotten some third and longs and whatnot. Our defense played a fantastic first half. I think it was like 260 yards to 54, but the score was 6-3. So clearly, we weren't capitalizing on the opportunities we had. They made the change at quarterback. I think it sparked them some and provided some different style of offense running the quarterback. I thought our guys showed a great deal of resiliency and fight today to fight back, to force overtime. But at the end of the day, we weren't effective enough in the high red to put touchdowns on the board. And I think that in and of itself was probably a microcosm of the game because we had plenty of opportunities, but we didn't capitalize on it. The beauty of it for us is this one stings. It's hard. But we get a chance to regroup here in a couple weeks and get into the college football playoff and go compete for a national championship. And I think we're plenty good enough to go win that. But we're going to need to get healthy so we can put our best foot forward to make that happen.
All right. I mean, I hate to simplify it as, you win some, you lose some. This was a heartbreaker because it felt like Texas kept like snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. You know what I mean? Like it felt like if they had just if they could execute, we keep saying, well, is this what they are? Like, if they could play their best ball, is this their best ball? What do you think?
No, I don't think it is. I think part of the problem with this game, yeah, I agree. Texas couldn't get out of their own way to save their life, especially in that first half. The stats were so incredibly lopsided, like Sark had mentioned. Texas defense did their damn job. They put Carson Beck, they rendered him ineffective. Ultimately, they stopped the run. They limited Georgia. They put the offense in a good position to continue to move forward and to score. And at the end of the day, the offense just couldn't get shit going. Now, again, I will credit Georgia defense. It's not like, this wasn't 100% Texas shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. Where I was frustrated, it felt like, and I'm going to try to use kind language here as much as I can. It felt like every time Texas got a positive drive going and were in the zone and they got down in that red zone, there were a few calls that felt like the refs were inserting themselves into the game. There were plenty of times where Texas did have some bad calls. Again, we saw those false starts. It's not something you can fake, right? But there were some defensive neutral zone infractions from Georgia that were not called. There were some big plays that were called back on the Texas offense because of penalties that, again, I'm going to use neutral language as much as possible. They were ghost penalties that felt like they really weren't there. So for me, I'm so torn on this game and how I'm supposed to feel about it. I'm still kind of torn on how I feel about it. There was some rage on my part during the game. In game, I think I invented some swear words in certain situations that just felt like it felt lopsided. Again, I know, listen, I bleed burnt orange. I wear those burnt orange glasses. I understand. I'm not going to try to pretend that I am the most unbiased person out there. I'm not. I try to be fair. I try to be balanced, but it was hard not to feel like this was just really uneven calling of the game. If you're going to be ticky-tacky as refs, be ticky-tacky. If you're going to let shit go, let shit go. But call it evenly. That's, to me, what was the biggest thorn in the side. The game was not called evenly. That, to me, is the worst, the most painful part about this game, because ultimately those penalties did play a role. Now, again, I'm not trying to say that Texas played perfect, mistake-free football, that they were wonderful baby angels the whole time and could do no wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there were some calls that felt manufactured, and there were certainly calls that were getting called on Texas that were super ticky-tacky, that when Georgia was doing the same or more egregious, were not being called. That's really frustrating. That aside, there were some things that were really concerning with Texas. Special teams, once again, continues to be problematic for Texas. And look, I don't want to pile on Burt.
Interception again.
Yeah.
Again.
I don't want to pile on Burt, but the stats are the stats, Rocky, like you said. I mean, it is, when you've got a kicker that is kicking 66%, something's got to change. Yeah, he's either got to improve drastically.
90s as a kicker. That's Texas in key situations, that will not do.
Now, the crazy thing about it is Burt Auburn holds the record for most field goals scored for a Texas kicker in Texas history. So it's not like the kid is a bad kicker. It just feels like when the pressure's on and it's super intense, I don't know if it's the yips or if he just gets in his head or what, but that could have been the difference in the game. The way this game ended up, where it was, that could have prevented Texas from going into overtime. Texas could have won it.
I would say when the pressure's on the most, he has delivered. Like the one that he needed to tie it and the one in overtime, he made those. He didn't make the one with a minute or whatever was left. Texas wouldn't have even gone to overtime. I think it's the middle of the range, mid ones, the game's just flowing, walks up Shank. And two of those mid-game changed the game. If we had just had one of those two, Texas, it's easy to say, oh, coulda, woulda, shoulda, if this had happened, whatever, Texas would have won. That's what's so frustrating. So let's say, like, we know, thank you for bringing this up. CB, Quinn's getting hate. That's unreal. He's getting Chris Sims type treatment. So let's go ahead and talk about Quinn. We said the game started again. Again, how many games now this year where the first drive for the offense is an interception? That's how you set the tone, right? They're setting the tone that way. What do you feel about but then you look at the stats and his third highest QB rating of his career at Texas, elite performance statistically, but then in the red zone, the entire offense stalls. What were you seeing with Quinn in the offense?
Yeah, I'm going to put this out there. I think the hate that Quinn's been getting is absolutely unwarranted. There were plays that were not his best. Again, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. But I don't think any of us were expecting the perfect game from Quinn. He did more than enough to manage the game. He did more than enough, in my opinion, to advance Texas and do the right things. What stood out to me, his receivers were not doing him any favors. There were several plays where he threw a perfect ball hit the receiver square in the hands, and the receivers were popping those balls up in the air. They weren't catching him. I know that certain plays can be difficult. I understand angles can be difficult, but bottom line, if the ball hits you in the hands, you catch the ball, right? So that's something where some of these drop passes, I'm not putting on Quinn. There were a few passes that were off target, no question. There were a couple passes that he could have been a little more zippy with it, no question. But yeah, CJ Vogel points this out. The wide receivers and the tight ends dropped 6 passes. That's insane. This was an uncharacteristic performance from our tight ends, from our wide receivers in this game. The usually reliable Gunnar Helm had a couple of drop passes that any other Saturday would have been a gimme, zero question. I just, let's bring this up too. We got a lot of love for the O-line here. We got a
Yep.
lot of love for him. We always give him shout outs when we can. But the O-line allowed 15 tackles for losses. We talked about this immediately after the game. It felt to me, and credit to Georgia's D-line, it felt to me that Texas's O-line was just getting manhandled the whole game. So I again, I
Again,
right. And I understand the propensity to put this on Quinn and say, wow, you weren't performing. But for the love of God, 15 tackles for losses are on the O line. That is hard for a quarterback to be productive. To me, you look at those kind of numbers, to look at what Quinn's stats ended up as is pretty damn amazing. It's pretty incredible given
358 yards passing.
right.
Yeah.
And a huge chunk of that was in the first half when we weren't producing, right? And another thing, the running game. And again, to me, this falls back a lot of responsibility on the O-line here. Texas only rushed for 31 yards, averaging 1.1 yard per carry. We know that for Texas's success, especially in the last few games that they had leading up to this championship game, that running game was a key piece of Texas's success and the offensive success. When you can't get the running game going, and again, I'm going to put a lot of that on the O-line. They're not creating holes. They're not, I mean, they were breaking through. They kind of anticipated what was coming and they were blowing by our guys. Now again, they were getting away with a lot of stuff. Texas got called for holding that, in my opinion, several times didn't happen. But when you can't establish that run game, when your O-line is letting the DL through, when they're sending guys and they're getting consistently into the backfield, that's not on Quinn. That's not on the quarterback. He still was making good throws. He was, for the most part, again, there were a few that were off, but for the most part, he was still making good throws. He was still seeing the field. He was still doing what he can. I thought that Quinn performed at a high level. Yeah, there's a few I'm sure he'd love to have back, but for the most part, I thought the errors weren't, Quinn wasn't the guy that I was upset with. Quinn wasn't the guy that I was blaming, right? Again, and then you factor in the 2 missed field goals on top of that. You factor in the drop balls. You look at all this stuff, and I feel like they're to blame this game, this loss on Quinn. To me, that's a lazy take.
Yeah.
There's just so much more to it than it's the quarterback's fault. We're going to pile on Quinn because that's what we've been doing all year. I just don't think that's accurate, and I don't think that's fair.
All right. I think it's important to talk to about, we know like the play calling, right? Sark had this plan for Quinn, right? And then he talked about the package with Arch, and we kind of saw a little bit of that last week. We were teased with this amazing, run by Arch Manning down the sideline for a touchdown at A&M. And then we were expecting a package with Arch and maybe expanded from it, and maybe he's going to throw from it or whatever he can do, because we know Arch can do all these things. And then just the week before, when Georgia went to 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech, we saw that quarterback just run circles all over Georgia, and Haynes King, and have his way with Georgia. And even though they came up short in the 8th overtime, he put up huge stats and ran with that. And that dual threat is an issue. Was an issue for Georgia, and has been, against Alabama, that, we saw earlier in the year, they've had issues with different quarterbacks. So I don't understand then why more of that why we didn't take advantage of that strength, that opportunity. They had no problem taking advantage of their strengths against Texas, and we didn't take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree. That was a missed opportunity for Texas. We had talked about this, break tendencies, right? We know that Rod Babers likes to say that a lot. That's been your keys to the game, the past few games that we've had. You've got to break tendencies. We know that Arch is capable of running. He's a big ass kid. We know he can run. We know he can throw. You and I talked about it a little bit prior to the game. We were saying, man, it'd be really cool to see a situation where both quarterbacks are in the game. Now, I know that's a little tricky. You don't want to risk both guys getting hurt on one play or something, God forbid, happening. But to me, you can't call a game out of fear, right? You've got to throw some crazy things at him. Know your game plan. But Sark is known for being an incredible offensive mind, a genius. He comes up with, tons of motion, lots of plays that you just don't see coming. And I agree, Rocky. I feel like this was a missed opportunity. And I don't think for Sark to throw something different and to really utilize all of the tools in his bag. It felt like we left a few things left to be desired. There were a few tools that weren't used, and I think Arch was a big one of them. Look, I want to address a couple things. Why can't Ewers release the ball quicker? Again, I agree. There were a few passes that he let the ball float a little bit, didn't have enough zip on it. Could have changed, could it have gotten there a little bit faster? But as far as holding on to the ball, I'll be honest, what I saw in the game, there weren't many times where I felt like he was holding on to the ball unnecessarily. I thought he made some smart choices where younger Quinn would have tried to force a ball in or done something silly and perhaps cause a turnover. Yeah, he took a sack or two, but he threw the ball out of bounds. I think a lot of that was just
6 sacks, I think.
Yeah, he took some sacks. Like, again,
I mean, he still threw for 358 yards. So
right.
He made a lot of passes. It's just
he
we
did
cannot talk about the ones that went right.
No,
to
agree.
Right?
Yeah, look, I'm not just trying to blow burn orange sunshine up everybody's butt. There were bad things too, no question. But I do want to highlight, for the most part, I think the ratio of good plays and at least not horrible plays, like plays that he limited the damage, was way higher than his bad plays. I think that he was being smart. And again, I'm crediting Georgia's defense here. Their D line was breaking through our O line all day, and they were good in coverage. Now, this is once again where I felt so much rage. There was a lot of handsy playing going on with their DBs, where Texas got called for some pass interference calls. Georgia wasn't getting called for that. They were grabbing jerseys. They were grabbing waists. They were spinning guys around. They were touching face masks. They were doing a lot. They were very physical. Their secondary was very physical down the road, and it wasn't getting called. That's frustrating. So I think, no, maybe that's some of what you might have been seeing, where you feel that Quinn wasn't releasing the ball as quickly. He wasn't getting it out of his hands as fast as you'd like to see. I think some of that was coverage. And I think some of that was just, he's figuring out, when you got guys barreling down, it's tough to zip it out. And in my opinion, especially given where Quinn has been in the past, I would rather watch him hold on to that ball, take a sack a time or two, or just throw it away versus doing something stupid and trying to force it. And all of a sudden you've got this massive momentum swing where the ball's turned over, like we did with Georgia the first time we played them. We gave them the ball inside of the 35-yard line. God, how many times, Rocky? 4 times? 5 times? I mean, it was an obscene amount of times.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Let's answer this. David asks, why do we have so many screen passes instead of going down the field more? And I agree with Randy's answer, because it works against everyone but Georgia.
Right.
Most of the time, Texas is faster than the other team. We're speedier. Our O-line can hold up long enough for that to develop. The wide receivers can cover their blocks to get, to send someone flying. But Georgia's linebackers are too fast. Georgia's DBs are too fast. The entire team is too prepared and has watched too much film. They see these little bubble screen things happening before Quinn even calls the play, right? They know it's coming. It's become a little predictable too. So they've read the plays. They know what's coming, and they are so physically fast and smart that they beat Texas to it. And it's such a huge part of Sark's game to spread them, to make room for the run game, to rely on the run game late in the game. That's how Sark builds his offense over an entire game, right? Not just one play or one series, but over the entire game. And when those aren't working, then there's no room to run inside. We know we struggle to run inside sometimes too, with down to I don't say down to Quintravian Wiseman has been amazing, right? But we're down, we're not deep at running back. So it's just a combination of all the things, right? And that's where we're at now. Is Georgia, it's matchups like CB says here. Texas can't get by Georgia. Georgia can't get by Bama. Like, it's this cycle, right? Of it's just matchups. And right now, our toughest matchup, who matches against Texas really well, is Georgia. And we see from the real quick, we see from the recruiting, Texas building a team like Georgia right now.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say one more thing about the screens here too. I think
Okay.
there was a bit of a missed opportunity. Yes, Rocky, spot on, 100,000%. You are right. It has worked. Screens have worked well for Texas. That has been what has been very successful for Texas this entire season, except against Georgia. That speed certainly matters. What I would have liked to see a little bit more in this game, where I felt like Sark pulled back a little bit on the creative play calling, is that motion, getting some confusion up front,
Mhm.
crossing guys up, confusing them out. Now, again, this may have been more of a product of, again, that O-line was just really struggling against Georgia's D-line, but so you didn't quite have the time for plays to develop. But I would have liked to see, yes, we had some clusters, which has worked well for Texas, but where it works really well is when you send guys, you cluster and cross, right? And it confuses the secondary and it happens bang, bang real quick. I feel like we didn't see that quite as much in this game as, at least as I would have liked. Again, that could have been a product of the D line just wreaking havoc up front. But I think that was a missed opportunity for Texas there as well, as far as play calling goes.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little defense real quick. We have to first mention Texas held Georgia to 136 yards passing, 141 yards rushing. That is very respectable considering in the stadium, yes, Texas did travel, but I would say it was maybe 35% Texas, 30 in our corner, and then scattered around Texas fans. It was very much majority Georgia. It was a home game for them. We were very much the visitors in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, whatever it was. But there was a good Texas crowd. The band was great as usual, but it was a home game for them. Texas dominated. Unfortunately, we know right before halftime, Carson Beck took that hit to his shoulder. He ended up going out. I think it was an elbow injury. I'll look it up. So
yeah, it was elbow.
Yeah, Carson Beck, we didn't come back in the second half, but who did come in? Gunnar Stockton. And Texas wasn't prepared for him to come in and be this dual threat superstar. So he did go down the field and score quickly for them to take the lead. But Texas adjusted, and that's all he had, right? That's all he had. Field goals after that. So I'm proud of the defense for adjusting like that. We've talked all season about how successful they've been against dual threat quarterbacks when they can prepare for them. They didn't prepare for this one. And if Carson Beck stayed in the game, that would have been amazing for Texas defense.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I think Beck going out really threw Texas's game plan out the window. I don't think that's something that they adequately prepared for, and nor should they, right? Like, you shouldn't 100% game plan about somebody getting hurt and the backup coming in. And exactly like you said, Rocky, that was a really great point. Texas defense adjusted well. It felt like this kid just absolutely could not be stopped when he first came in, but Texas adjusted and held Georgia deep in the red zone at times, just to field goals after that initial score that caught Texas kind of on their butts. So yeah, again, once more, credit to Texas defense for yet again keeping them in the game, keeping this game competitive. One thing I do want to point out that is concerning. It pertains to offense a little bit. We're going to give credit to defense here too, but Texas has been outscored by opponents 31-3 in the third quarter. That to me,
that's just the last few games.
Yeah, and that to me is really indicative of what's happening here. So Texas only getting 3 points in the third quarter here in the last few games, and the defense kind of, I don't know if it's you had a snack at halftime and now you got the sleepies a little bit before you wake back up, but Texas defense historically has been a little bit slower coming out of halftime and then catching right back up. But again, I think that stat really points that out. Texas having been outscored by opponents 31-3 in the third quarter over the last few games here. That's going to be a problem moving forward.
I think this is a little bit different because a different quarterback came out. A completely different style quarterback came out. So I think this one we can give a little more grace, but there's no excuse to not score any points on our own.
Right.
0 points. Right.
And this is over the past 3 games. And again, shout out to Rod Babers for that. Only 2 teams have scored fewer points in the FBS in the third quarter over the last 4 games than Texas. So that's not a stat leader that you want to to have your name associated with. So yeah, I did want to point that out too before we get too far into defense. Yeah, now as far as defense goes, there were a few plays here, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, and go into more depth when we get into our what could have happened, the what ifs, right? There were a few plays here where the Texas defense, I felt like, kind of lost some of their focus. There was the Jade's interception. Now, several interceptions. I believe it was 2 interceptions in a row, and a third interception at some point got called back because of penalties.
Yes,
Penalties that
Makuba's
felt very
got called
questionable.
back. Makuba's got called back because they said it was offside or something on Texas. And if you look at the still shot of the snap, no one is offside.
Right.
No one. And they throw
Right.
this late flag when Makuba gets the INT.
Yeah. And it was a late flag from a line judge that wasn't close to the action, and they didn't review it. I mean, that to me is just when you are having such a huge impact on the game and there's question on whether or not this was an accurate call, you've got to at least pause and review it, right?
I
Now,
don't
and
think
again,
I don't think the
is that
offside
reviewable?
reviewable, but
That kills me.
no, the interception is reviewable, but the offside isn't. The ref can just say offside and
Yeah,
it is called.
deal with it. Yeah,
Deal with it, which took away an interception. So Texas, we can't. It's not the refs aren't the reason Texas lost this game, but also
Agreed.
the refs are also the reason that Texas was held back and often.
I will say this here. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, you've got to play better than to let the refs affect the outcome of the game.
Make 2 field goals.
But I do also feel like there is something to be said for refs inserting themselves in the game. And I felt like the refs really inserted themselves in this game, which was unfortunate. Again, if you're going to be ticky-tacky, call it ticky-tacky. If you're going to let them play, but you got to call it even both ways. And I just feel like that wasn't what happened in this game as far as how the refs called it. Now,
I mean, here's the snap where they called us offside, which negated an interception.
Right.
I mean, come on.
At the 50. I mean, this was, yeah, that's frustrating. Now I will say this too, and I'm debating if I should save this for later in our conversation. There were some plays, I will elaborate more when we get to this section of our discussions, but there were certainly some plays where I think Texas lost a little bit of focus, and had they had more situational awareness, so some different things could have happened. I think there were a few plays where, you know what, F it, I'll just say it. With Jade's interception, and we were, Rocky, you and I were sitting in the perfect place to see this. There wasn't anything in front of him. Nothing. That was green grass the entire way. All that had to happen was one player needed to have some situational awareness, and instead of celebrating the interception, which is awesome, I want you to be excited.
I don't say it that way.
I do 1,000%. All you had to do, let's play it.
Let's play it.
Texas brings pressure. Stockton backpedaling, throws it, and right to Texas. Intercepted by Jade Barron. The young fella under pressure made a mistake, and Texas is set up now.
You can see Gilbo kind of put his arm out thinking the guy's not going to beat him. The guy beat him. Yes, he should have go ahead and put his shoulder in, make a block, really set Jade off. But
Gilbo put his arm out pointing to the end zone where Jade needed to run.
Instead of
all he had to do, all he had to do was hesitate and get in the path of the defender coming in. He had angle. He could have easily gotten in the way. But, and again, I'm sitting in the stands. I'm not the one on the field. But that's a touchdown difference. That's a touchdown difference. Is it the one reason Texas
offense can't go down and get a touchdown is why Texas lost that
game?
Again,
you're getting defensive about it. I'm just calling facts.
I'm just saying the offense,
If Auburn had made those 2 field goals, right, hadn't missed the field goals, had Jade been able to score there, which was wide open green, there was literally no one else that had the angle. that changes this game. That changes this game. So no, I'm not going to say, point the finger. You were the reason we lost. Gilbo is not the reason we lost the game. I'm simply pointing out this is a learning opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Absolutely.
It's a missed opportunity.
Opportunity.
It's a teaching moment where you can say, hell yeah, be excited for your brother, be excited for your teammate. But don't lose yourself in the moment where you potentially had an opportunity to help even more, right? Like I think that's what we could say. So yeah, I mean, again, I think this really boils down to, we talked about the missed field goals. One last thing that I do want to bring up. Well, a couple things. Let's talk about Makuba's big hit. I thought that was great. I want to sing his praises because, man, he laid the wood. And what a perfect, I love this snapshot because pretty instantly, and I understand, I will say this, I understand why the refs threw the flag because the violent reaction.
Stockton's helmet went flying.
His helmet went flying and his body.
And he didn't fumble the ball.
Right.
Another crazy things are just going Georgia's way. He held on to the ball.
Yeah, credit to Stockton. The man was shooketh by that hit, and he held on to the ball. I can appreciate why the refs threw the flag, but then they did review it. And I will say towards the fourth quarter, the refs started to get calls right. They might have thrown some flags, but they reviewed and they got him right in the end. But what a perfect textbook hit for the updated way that college football is being played in the age of targeting and who knows what targeting is at this point. I was really, really proud of Makuba's technique here, where he absolutely laid the wood, but he did it in a clean way. This was an intentional hit. He intentionally put that shoulder down and got his head out of the way so that he's not leading with the crown of the helmet to lead towards that targeting. So props to Makuba, man. Like, again, I'm just so impressed with how he's developed and how far his game has come. And I cannot wait to see what else he brings to Texas, throughout the rest of this postseason and moving into the future.
Probably off to the NFL. He was the leading tackler in this game. He had 11 total, 10 solo. And just last week we saw again, he was reviewed for potential targeting and it was cleared because his hits, like you said, they're so violent, but they're clean. He leans with the shoulder. He turns his head away, leans with the shoulder, and he just comes as a missile. And 2 weeks in a row, his hit is so violent and so physical that they have to think it must be illegal, and it's not.
Yeah,
so
look,
I'm glad he didn't get ejected because that would have meant the first half of Clemson, he would his old team, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, he wouldn't have been able to play. At the time, we didn't know it was going to be Clemson, but now we know. All right. Yes.
Yep.
Wicked hit. Yes.
It was. It reminded me of the old jammer hits, right? Some of those old jammer hits nowadays would certainly not be legal, but you remember those hits where jammer would come flying in and just sweet baby Jesus, you could hear it up in Waco. You could hear the hit in Waco. He hit so hard. That's what that reminded me of. All right. The last thing that I do want to say, and again, this is in regards to special teams, that I thought was a massive game changer and really just took the wind out of Texas's sails was that fake punt call by Kirby Smart.
Oh my goodness. That was a game changer.
It was. And for me, hindsight is 2020. Again, it's easy for us to sit here on the couch and on our chairs and say, you should have done that. We all saw it coming. But in that moment, I feel like several people, including myself around us, were going, God, please watch for the fake punt. This is the perfect time for a fake punt. Again, hindsight's 2020, but that was a gutsy call to be as deep in their own territory as Georgia was, but they executed well, and it absolutely caught Texas off guard. It absolutely caught them off guard. And that really did change the fabric of the game. It really changed the momentum, took the wind out of Texas's sails, to be sure, and was a tough thing to recover from. So, that's just another moment, another opportunity that Texas had and wasn't quite able to capitalize on there.
I These are good points. Chuck Smith says the injured punter David Wheeler said situational awareness. They should have realized that the punter wasn't in. That would have at least given him a little heads up. Something's different here. And it was just a gutsy call back in their own end. We're on the 30-yard line or so. Gutsy call. Barron got there as quick as he could and saved what could have been a really big return on that. But it was enough for the first down. And what a moment. They had just gone 3 and out.
Right.
They just gone 3 and out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that felt like a backbreaker in the game. It really did. It felt like, because then Georgia marched on. They took a ton of time off the clock. And it really, to me, it really did feel like that was just a pivotal moment in that game. So, yeah, again, I really think the story of this game was missed opportunities for Texas. Texas was in it the whole time, despite everything. Yeah. Texas was in this game the whole time. It's just they weren't quite able to get over that hump. Those missed opportunities really took their toll in this game. And Georgia, again, I'm not trying to discredit Georgia. You can't miss that many opportunities against a team that's as good as Georgia and expect to come out on top. So,
ooh, that's clever, Brian. Just like the one-arm QB coming in on the last play, they should have known they're gonna run.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Just gotta give them credit because they. All right, let's quickly do our 3, 2, 1s. This is where we give 3 good things, 2 bad things. I don't like to call them bad, but sometimes they're just bad because we're honest, and 1 to grow on. So I'll go first, Megan. My good, I just have to give a good to the defense all around. Even though, yes, there was a situational of the one-arm QB, overall, the defense was fantastic. Like we said, they held them to under 300 yards total offense. They adjusted when the surprise of this dual threat quarterback came out in the second half. Even though they moved the ball down the field to start, they did adjust and then pretty much shut them down after that. So I'm going to give my good is the defense. My good was the offense between the 20s. Of course, the red zone is still tragic and we went from tragic last year to one of the best in the country to start the season. And then SEC schedule hit and it went missing. So I would like to say the offense between the 20s is pretty good. Let's figure out the red zone. And then as much crap as everyone, rightfully so, for his 2 key missed field goals, I would like to give Bert Auburn credit for making the one that tied the game and making the one in overtime. All he could do when the team got him into field goal range, when they didn't get the touchdown, so all he can do is attempt his kick. He made them. They got him in field goal range to tie it, to get to overtime. He made it. So that's good. Yes, I saw a comment earlier. Every field goal does matter, and Texas could have won that game. But I'm going to find the good, and that was the good.
Yeah.
What are your 3 goods, Megan?
I appreciate that. Yeah, look, I'm going to say this. We had kind of been harping on, God, when are these interceptions going to keep flowing? And this game they did. Yeah, they got turned over. A lot of them did, but Texas kept at it. Credit to Jahdae Barron. Credit to that Texas defense just bringing it, the secondary especially. This was a game where Texas was in position. They understood what was happening. They were doing the right things. They got those interceptions. You can't fault the defense for the calls that were made against them that negated some of those interceptions. So in moments where we've said, man, we'd really like to see Texas be bigger in that turnover, category. They did everything they could. They did the right things. They did the right things. And I would offer that if Texas keeps that same energy, keeps doing that, grows on that, that stat, you'll see that change for Texas in the.
And they even got the ball on the ground, forced some fumbles, caused some fumbles. Yeah, everything bounced Georgia's way.
That's it. Look, I don't know if you guys could see this on TV.
The one that went out of bounds and bounced for like 20 minutes out of bounds.
But there was one that was right in front of us. We were down towards the band, towards the end zone that was labeled Georgia, and there was a fumble in that end, like close to that end zone, where Texas did well. I can't remember who it was, but came from behind, punched the ball out. And I don't know what act of God happened here for this to happen, but the football came out of his hands, literally rugby bounced on the ground directly back into his hands. It was just like, man, you couldn't have scripted that any better for him. That's the way the football falls, I guess.
Just bounce one.
Sometimes you just don't get the bounce.
Literally.
Yeah. So again, credit to Texas defense in that sense, but the interceptions especially, I thought that was something where the secondary has really been keying in and doing a great job and showing improvement game and game and game and game. So
and it's
credit.
that D-line getting pressure up front, forcing those air throws for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give Quinn the shout out. With as much hate as that young man has gotten over this past week or past few days from that game, like we talked about at the top of this segment, you can't blame everything bad that happened on Quinn. He didn't play a perfect game, but my God, he did everything reasonably within his power to help Texas win this game. You consider the drop passes, you consider the O-line problems, the porous O-line, you consider the lack of the running game. This wasn't on Quinn. And so I really want to give Quinn credit. When the pressure was on, he didn't get in his own head. I've talked about that on our show a few times. He didn't get in his own head. He didn't allow the pressure to get to him. He made, for the most part, smart decisions. There were a few I'm sure he'd like to have back, but overall, I thought Quinn played a good game. And
highest player on the field on Saturday for Texas.
Yeah. So shout out to Quinn for his performance, despite what folks, the absolute deluge of shit that he's been getting from Texas fans. And the third thing that I thought was really good, I'm going to say this. I know you guys are tired of me saying it. I'm sure it's getting a little worn thin from the team too, but the culture really showed through with Texas. I liked seeing Sark come out and seething at halftime. I liked his interview. That might be a hot take. That might not be a popular take, but I liked it because he was pissed for his guys, right? He was pissed because his team was doing the right things. His guys were doing the right things, and the refs were inserting themselves there. But during the game, after the game, even with the post regular season announcements for the awards, we are watching this team support each other. Jade saying why Mookie got the snub is BS, right? Watching these guys come through. Gunnar Helm, where is he? I just love watching this team support each other. And I know that Texas, especially under Sark, has had really supportive teams before, but I feel like we're seeing that more and more. I love watching some of these more senior players come out and support the team, talk highly of the young guys looking up to and leaning on the older guys, watching these guys just love and support each other. I will say this, Mookie and Jade, their relationship just, it rivals Jordan Whittington and Bevo, right? Like I was
gonna say Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg, but
I love it, man. All right, well, which one is Snoop Dogg and which one's Martha?
That is Martha Stewart, obviously.
Clearly. So yeah, I think those are my three good things. David, I appreciate this.
Yeah. You
want to give a shout out to the Longhorn Band. They do always bring the energy. I will say this, the Longhorn Band was crazy loud at A&M, and they did everything they could at this championship game. They brought the energy. They're excited. They're hyped coming in. That's one thing I do want to say too. I thought, and you're right, Rocky, there were way more Georgia fans there than there were Texas. Obviously, the cost difference to make it to Atlanta for both teams is quite different. But I felt that the SEC championship game, I thought that Georgia fans were the kind of loud that A&M fans bragged about being. Like, I didn't think the Aggie game was it wasn't overwhelmingly loud. It wasn't, after all the hype and all the buildup of the Kyle Field atmosphere, to me, the atmosphere fell flat. I felt that at the SEC championship, the Georgia fans were what the Aggie fans were bragging about being. I thought they were loud.
Picked it up. They started loud, got quiet for a while, got back in it. Yeah, they were fine. All right, so let's move to too bad quickly. We'll get through those. I would just like my too bad, unawareness on that fake punt. That was a game changer. It was just, we talked about it. And then, of course, the bad, you can't have 30-something yards net running, and which we know, including the sacks or whatever, 50, 60 yards or so on the ground before those sacks, and win a championship. We talked about this last week when I said I looked at all the stats of the last 10 SEC games, coming in with a better record or passing yards or time of possession, all those things. The only thing that really made a difference, and it made a difference 10-0 in those 10 games, was whoever ran the ball more won the game. That's it. Every other thing was 5-5, 6-4, whatever. 10-0. If you can run the ball better, you win this game. And when we couldn't run the ball, that's when I was like,
oh, no.
Are we going to break this historic trend or is this just what it is? And it turned out to be that's just what it is.
All right. My too bad. I don't want to harp. I'm going to say it quickly. Special teams is not up to the standard at Texas. It has to improve. I'm going to leave it at that. We don't need to harp on it anymore. That is what it is. Special teams has to improve. The second thing that I thought was just killer was once again the mistakes. Yes, we talked about this a lot. I don't think that the penalties were called evenly. I don't think the game was called evenly. But at the end of the day, you can't blame everything on the refs. There were plenty of calls where Texas, the false starts, some holding. There were plenty of calls where Texas just couldn't get out of their own way and reverted back to sloppy play like they did the first time they played Georgia. So we thought they had cleaned that up. Again, credit to Georgia for forcing that kind of play, for being an aggressive enough team and a good enough defense to force that kind of stuff. But if Texas is going to win a national championship, you're going to play high caliber teams. You cannot beat yourself on top of playing a really good team. So that to me was the two bad things for Texas.
All right. Drop a little comment real quick. Wingo should get the ball more. I agree. But what I don't agree, I love Wingo, superstar. You can go back and see the day we saw he committed to Texas. I almost had a heart attack. However, going to him twice in the red zone with the game on the line, I think was too much for a young freshman. He went all out, gave his whole effort, but I was surprised that they were trusting him in that moment. Maybe that's because he's just a superstar, and it was unfortunate that he couldn't bring those in. They were kind of funky, weird, twisted throws with great defense. But I was surprised that they went to Wingo twice in a row in the red zone with the game on the line. Maybe that just kind of to show the future's bright with Wingo because they trusted him in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Grow. My last one to grow on is that the team never quit. Never quit. Struggled to run the ball, still stayed with it. Got turnovers, even when the offense couldn't do anything, they still kicked their ass to try to get more turnovers, to give the offense back the ball. Didn't quit. When was time to go to Auburn, when it counted the most, he came through with those kicks. They just never quit. Like you mentioned the culture earlier, they're fighting for each other. I think that's definitely one to grow on, to take into the playoffs, where they're going to have adversity after adversity after adversity.
Yeah.
They get to start with the comforts of home at DKR next Saturday, but they're going to face adversity again, and they didn't quit. And that's what you want in a team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My one to grow on, I think we touched on it a little bit. Maybe I'm just paraphrasing what you said, but the missed opportunities were there. We pointed out many, and this to me is that's a learning opportunity. That's a teaching moment, right? I think that's something that Texas can walk away and say, look, we had some missed opportunities here. The game was there. The game was within reach. We missed those opportunities. For me, this is a moment where Texas can get back in the film room. They can come together as a team, identify areas that they could have been better, and learn and grow from that and not make those mistakes again. So I think, if we're going to take the bad, I want to call it a silver lining. There's a lot of opportunity for growth here and a lot of opportunity to learn. Again, against a really good team. Georgia brought it. They were ready for Texas. And I think Texas was prepared, but just couldn't quite get over that hump. So, it's there's some possibilities. There's some crazy scenarios out there. But if we're going to succeed in the SEC, we got to be able to beat teams like Georgia. So take those moments, learn from them, and grow.
All right, let's finish our SEC championship game talk and move on to college football in just a minute, broader college football in just a minute. But let's finish this sentence, Megan. Texas would have won if...
How much time do you got?
Just finish the sentence. Texas
the
would have won
block.
this game
If Jade's interception had gone for the
Oh,
touchdown.
I'm going to say Texas would have won this game if they had made one of the two missed field goals.
Right. One of the two missed field goals, or had scored in the first half more.
And let us know in the comments, Texas would have won this game if one thing.
The upside to this question.
Oversimplify it and act like we don't know ball. Just make it one thing. Yeah.
The upside to this question is you have a lot of things to choose from. There's a lot of things that you can put in.
You do. Did you eat food at the stadium? CB wants to know. I ate off some of April Finkley's nachos, which were really good, but I never left my seat.
Yeah, I didn't either. I had every intention of eating the that rib that made a bowl, like the
I bet
took
that
a rack of ribs.
Did you even find it?
$30. It was $30.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy.
Food.
But I will say this, I'm going to give a shout out to Mercedes-Benz Stadium because their Wi-Fi was it worked so well.
Good Wi-Fi.
It was amazing. Everybody talks about DKR's Wi-Fi. I can't get shit out.
I get everything on DKR. I can stream videos.
I can't
post whole videos.
Well, good for you. I guess me being in the club seats is peasant stuff. I can't get Wi-Fi
I'm just open
to work
air,
on my
I guess.
phone.
I mean, I have Sky above me. All right. So CB says.
Anyway,
oh, I'm sorry, Megan.
I was going to say
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't eat the ribs. I had every intention of eating that bowl. But I did see, because of that Wi-Fi, I did see Pinkerton give a review of the ribs. So it kind of, he said the mac and cheese was phenomenal, really good. He said the ribs were terrible. He said that they were overcooked and dry and not seasoned properly.
It sits there all day.
Yeah, it's hard to keep when you don't have the smoker. It's hard to keep the temperature right. So that's going to dry out real quick, and then stadium food, you're just going to slop on a bunch
box. So
yeah, with chips and stuff. So yeah,
CB I think is saying Auburn's kicking. This is a good take, Trey Moore. If he didn't hit Beck's elbow, yeah, because Beck would stayed in the game, and we could.
I appreciate that take, man. I like that. That's one of the more sneaky ones. That's a good call, bud. I love it.
That's true. He made the field goal, but then the penalty brought it back, and then he missed it. So maybe it's actually the penalty that lost the game. I don't know. Anyway, let's wrap up. Megan, I just wanted to show one more thing, and then we'll do Chuck's Land. We'll share the message about our friend Chuck and his beautiful property. But I have to show you this Austin American Statesman fail. They printed horns up. Texas answers the challenge of blah, blah, wins the SEC. This was the wrong story that got printed, and I don't know how many copies went out or what actually happened, but somebody's showing it here that the Austin American Statesman actually printed the wrong.
Well, that's the danger of print media, right? You've got a deadline to go to print, and that's a collector's item at this point. The championship that never was.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, we want to give a huge shout out this holiday season. If you are looking for a wonderful getaway in the Texas Hill Country for yourself or for your family, look no further than the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. It is an absolutely beautiful experience out in Blanco, which is nestled between Johnson City and Austin and San Antonio. There's so much to do out there on 120 acres. There is a main home, two fully furnished cabins, and combined these sleep 14 people. So plenty of room for friends and family to come out and spend time together. You can wildlife watch, go fishing, play with the longhorns that are out there, even feed them if you want. There's a ton of indoor and outdoor eating and cooking area. And you're just 5 minutes from downtown Blanco, where there are breweries, eateries, distilleries, shopping, and so much more. So if you guys are looking for a getaway once more in the beautiful Texas Hill Country, and our friend Chuck just jumped in and said this, the ranch is available for Christmas time. So if you're looking for something a little different, you want to get away from the hustle bustle, you don't want to have to deal with cleaning your house, check out the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. Again, that's rockindiamondsranch.com, or call Chuck Smith at 512-694-1969. You can see the info on the screen here. Tell him that Rocky and Megan sent you, and give him a hook 'em horns. Chuck is a lifelong Longhorn. We appreciate him.
Love it. All right. Beautiful property. If you have holiday plans, you want to get the family together, get out there. All right. So let's talk about bigger college football, the world of big college football. Right now, there is a new AP top 25. I will share that with you, Megan. And then you tell me anything surprising after the long weekend. This is the new top 25. Texas still getting respect for going toe-to-toe with Georgia. Still ahead of Penn State, surprised me, I guess, because Penn State, they kind of went toe-to-toe with Oregon, but not really. Notre Dame got to rest and move up this weekend.
Old independent Notre Dame.
Home, and they're still there. Any thoughts? Anything crazy? Anybody missing that should be in the top 25?
Look, I do appreciate that we've heard time and time again. Now I know this is AP poll. We've heard from the committee, and it seems like the AP followed the same thinking that they weren't going to punish teams for playing in a conference championship. I love that Texas only fell back to number 4. Georgia jumped up. I think that feels about fair for how the game played out. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't a blowout. It's not like this was a crazy, Texas showed up. The teams went toe-to-toe, came down, obviously, overtime. So, yeah, I appreciate that they kept Texas in the top 5 here. Some surprises, I think Boise jumping up as high as they did was a little surprising to me. I think we're seeing a bit of the Genty effect there, getting credit for his incredible season so far. So how about you, Rocky? Anything there that jumped out at you that you said, man, what's happening?
Oh, I was just going to show you something else in just a second. I mean, it seems fair. This is, of course, different. These rankings are different than the seedings and the brackets, which we'll look at in just a second. But, Alabama, the debate I was going to show you the debate between Alabama and SMU, who should be in. I did a poll. 91% said SMU should be in over Bama. So, of course, even though Alabama's ranked higher than SMU, if they were to play, Alabama would probably be favored by 17, 18. But
I don't know.
Alabama had enough losses. I think they would be favored big double digits easily. Alabama had too many losses, and that last ugly loss to OU, ugly loss to OU, ended up keeping them out of the playoffs. So
listen, any team that can lose like that to OU, SMU has a chance against. That's all I'm saying. I think I don't want to hear it from Bama.
It's matchups.
I found it funny that so many Bama fans and talking heads have been saying, oh, well, Bama's just not going to schedule the hard teams anymore. What's the point if you're not given credit for strength of schedule? Okay, so you already have a cupcake out of conference schedule. You guys literally are, what was it, group of 5 and FCS teams? Your losses were in conference. It doesn't change. You're not going to change your conference games. Win your conference games, and it's not a conversation. I think it's a silly argument from Bama people. Texas played Michigan. We took on the national champion. Yes, I know Michigan changed, but Texas can't help that.
They stink. And Michigan went to Ohio State and beat them.
Thanks, Blue. Right. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the grades of the teams that are going to be that were in the conference championship games, and then we'll look at kind of how they played out over the weekend, and then how that ended up affecting college football playoff seedings. Okay, this is PFF College Pro Football Focus. They have Sark's photo because of all the grades of the 2024 teams. Texas has the highest grade, just sneaking by Oregon, 93.3. They grade the team. Oregon, 93. Then Penn State, SMU, 92, but they also have different competition. Georgia, Clemson, Arizona State, who we will face, and then Iowa. If we beat Clemson, we would go to Arizona State, and then Iowa State down at the bottom. So that's pretty good. Texas is an efficient, highly rated team. So let's look. We saw the Mountain West game Friday night was UNLV Boise State. Boise State handled business, beat them 21-10. Ashton Genty, 209 yards rushing, up there with Travis Hunter. There'll be a battle there for Heisman. I think they're both fantastic.
No, they're not.
Big 12. We played this video again a minute ago, but let's show it because we've had a couple hundred people join us since we talked last. That is an empty AT&T Stadium in it's not Arlington. Arlington, is it considered Arlington? Yeah. For Iowa State and Arizona State. So even though not a lot of people watched that game, they missed a complete blowout. So did you watch any of that game? I know we were tailgating. No, it was after our game. Was it after?
I was driving home to Atlanta. I couldn't watch that game. Yeah.
Oh, well, it was a butt kicking blowout. I think I was going back and forth between that one and Oregon or something like that, if I remember. It was a long travel day. And then Oregon handled Penn State. They went back and forth. Penn State fought back, got back in it. 45-37. I think the most exciting game of the day, Clemson, SMU. I was falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep, watching this one. I was like, oh, it's going to be a blowout. Clemson's pulling away. SMU got it, tied it up, and Clemson won with a 50-something yard field goal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, look, I credit to Smooth Ponies, man. They're having a pretty incredible season. I'm not mad at them. I don't have any ill will towards SMU. So I think it's good that they took Clemson to the ropes. Now, of course, they're going to get a couple weeks off just like we do before we take them on in DKR. We will talk about that a lot more, guys. We've got several more shows before the actual playoff game. So we'll talk about matchups. We'll talk about what we're looking at. But yeah, let's dive into the college football playoff 12-team field. It is officially set. Rocky, what are you happiest about outside of Texas making it? And what are you most surprised about?
It actually, and we talked about this last week going into the Georgia game, that even though Texas was favored, the matchup against Georgia is tough. Getting to the SEC championship game, I know they didn't want to just get there. They wanted to win, right? Texas wanted to win that game. Texas had a plan to win that game, just couldn't fully execute to win that game. But I was impressed that Texas got there in the first year, went toe to toe with Georgia, went to overtime, and played much better than the last time we played them, but not enough, right? So I was saying, well, if Texas falls against Georgia, it's not the end of the world, because last year it would have meant no playoffs because there were only 4 seeds. This year you're still in the playoffs. And if you can just hang around in that 5, 6, 7 spot, you could have a pretty smooth ride playing teams that haven't had the toughest competition or the highest rated recruits. That doesn't mean they can't beat you. That doesn't mean Clemson can't come into Texas and beat Texas at Texas, but you have a more favorable path, right? Statistically, you're going to be more favored. Strength, comparing strength of schedules and rosters and all those things. So Texas gets Clemson at home next Saturday, which is favorable being at home. All the storylines with that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But if Texas can handle Clemson, then they play Arizona State back in Atlanta. I think that Tennessee-Ohio State matchup is going to be a good game. SMU Penn State, SMU having to go all the way to freezing cold State College, PA, and play in whatever blizzard comes through that morning. And then Indiana, Notre Dame, both local schools to the same area. So I don't know how much national draw that'll be. I know Notre Dame has national fans, but that doesn't excite me as much. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, look, I agree. I think the most intriguing matchup on, in this first round is Tennessee at Ohio State. I think that's going to be just it's just a matchup you don't see often between two blue bloods that are going to duke it out. Yes, look, Tennessee, it's going to be really cold in Ohio, but Tennessee gets cold too. It's not like they don't deal with snow and cold weather. So I don't think the weather is going to be quite as big of a factor as I think some folks want to make it out to be. But I'm just interested to see Heupel go up against Day and see how these two teams match up against each other. I think that's a really intriguing matchup there. As far as Indiana, Notre Dame, for me, the most intriguing thing about this, it's an in-state rivalry ? But all season long, we've kind of wondered, is Indiana the real deal? Do they really have what it takes? And I think this is going to be a good litmus test for that. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to learn a lot about this Indiana team and who they actually are going up against a team to the caliber of Notre Dame. So excited for that matchup because of that, where I can see if my trash talking has been justified all season long or if I was wrong about Indiana. And of course the Cinderella story, right? I'm calling the SMU the Smooth Ponies is kind of the Cinderella story of this college football playoff game. Going into college, up to Penn State, I think that's going to be a really crazy matchup. That's the one where I think weather is going to, and I think you mentioned this earlier, weather is going to have a bigger effect than it will in the Tennessee-Ohio State game. So, yeah, a lot of interesting matchups. One thing to say about Clemson coming into Texas, these teams have never played each other in football. Clemson and
Ever.
Texas have never matched up in both of the school's storied histories. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a really neat matchup just for the history aspect of it all. We will talk more on future shows about the actual matchups. How does Clemson line up against Texas? What are Texas's strengths? What are Clemson's strengths? How do we think that game is going to play out? So definitely, please be sure to join us again. We've got a lot more to talk about. Before we get there, please make sure that you like the video and subscribe. We are Fire the Cannon Podcast on YouTube, on Instagram and Twitter. I refuse to call it X. We are at Fire the Cannon and the number 1. We appreciate y'all being here. We got a lot more to talk about. So look at these two little baby face kids right
teams
here.
have never played against each other, but the quarterbacks have. So that's kind of funny. We'll talk more about Clemson and Texas later as we go. But let's look at, so Georgia and Texas have the best odds of winning the championship now that the brackets are out. Here is, let's see, plus 360 Texas, plus 360 Georgia. I think that means they have Texas and Georgia back in that rematch, going toe-to-toe, evenly matched. Of course, Oregon has an opportunity, Ohio State at plus 500. So that's feels pretty good that Texas's path is favorable enough for people to think that they have, tied for the best odds to win it still. All the goals are still ahead.
The idea that Texas has to play Georgia, could potentially play Georgia 3 times in 1 year, and twice of those, 2 of those times is going to be in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
It couldn't have worked out better for the Dogs. All right. Hey, David, I like this question. Let's talk about it a little bit. Oops, CB, because we had another comment, it popped up. So I'll say this real quick. Jalen Milroe, thank you, CB, for telling us. Jalen Milroe just won the Campbell Trophy. Jake Majors was a finalist for that. I believe that ceremony, correct me if I'm wrong, was out in Vegas tonight.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jake Majors was in attendance. Of course, the Campbell Trophy is for the best. It's awarded to the football player with the best combination of academics, community service, and on-field performance. So what an honor for
Jalen Milroe to keep up the academics with the rigors of being the Alabama quarterback and do community work. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, shout out to Jake Majors for being a finalist for that award. What a great job he's done. I mean, I think he's one of those guys where I think we're going to look back and go, man, we didn't appreciate him enough when we had him. So really appreciate Jake Majors now, guys. We have a few more games left this season. So yeah, David, I wanted to get to your question too. Do you think that this college football playoff will change the seeding process in the future to match the rankings? I think there's a conversation to be had there. Yes. I think Alabama has enough pull and has thrown enough of a hissy fit that it will be something that is considered. I think we saw a little bit of an adjustment because of the Florida State situation last year. I think we saw a little bit of a different approach from the playoff committee on how they approached picking teams. Of course, they did mention that strength of schedule was going to count. Like we mentioned a little bit earlier, Bama beat your in-conference opponents and you wouldn't be in this situation. But yeah, there is some question of Boise State getting a bye and getting the automatic bid. I do think there is an argument to be made for automatic bids for conference winners, but the seeding should be more appropriate or closer to the rankings. I think there is a fair argument to be made there. It makes for better football. It makes for a truer test. Or it allows the playoffs to play out more like they are designed to play out. You reward the teams that did the best over the season. You reward them with the quote unquote easier path to the national championship, and the teams that aren't ranked quite as high still get that automatic bid, but they don't necessarily have the cakewalk all the way through, giving them what some might call an unfair advantage. So yeah, David, I think that's a great question. I do think it is something that's going to be reviewed for next year, and potentially changed. I think it should be changed.
I mean, if we look again at the top 25, AP top 25, we're talking about these automatic bids for like Boise State getting that first round bye. Tennessee's ranked ahead of them. Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, Notre Dame, all ranked ahead of them and not getting those buys because they're not, because Boise State was a conference champion. That's,
in a historically weak conference.
Yeah, and from the Mountain West. So,
right.
That I think there's going to be enough conversation, and the NCAA, they'll be quick to take 24 years to address it. This is kind of funny. You mentioned about Bama being out and that they'll throw enough hissy fit because they have the pool. I thought this video was hilarious, describing Bama, what it's like for Bama trying to get into the playoff.
No. No.
Listening to the audio, it's a baby. They have a background of the playoff brackets, and it's a baby like over the video over it, like pointing at the bracket. The original baby's pointing at something else they can't have, but the baby's pointing at the 12 bracket, and the mom is like, "No,"
and saying, "Here, no, you can't." Look, my favorite thing about this is, Rocky, as we prep for our show, we have a ton of notes. We have a ton of bookmarks. We have things that we reference back to and refer, things that we see that we like. And you and I collaborate on our notes. And one of my favorite things is when I jumped in to collaborate on the notes, I was so insistent, like, I had to put this video in. Girl, you already had it. We both saw it and thought it was perfect. I died. I died laughing at it. It was good.
Oh, good.
So,
yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if we'll get to it, but sometimes like I gotta squeeze that in. Yeah.
Brian, I appreciate your comment here too. I had mentioned that Georgia, it's potential that Texas plays Georgia again in Atlanta, third time this year. But you make a good point. Beck will be out. It is, while Rocky pointed out that Texas and Georgia do have the highest percentage of making it to the national championship game, and they're being the highest percentage of them playing again for the Natty. You're absolutely right. Carson Beck is out. And that is a big question mark for Georgia. Cue bitching FSU fans coming in now about backup quarterbacks and do they deserve to be there? But yeah, you're right. That is going to be
backup come and light it up down the field against Texas, and being
a little bit more
reloading recruit. I wouldn't,
right. One could argue their backup won them the SEC championship, and FSU's backup quarterback absolutely didn't do that. So,
all right. You're so funny. All right. So let's look at what we know. Texas is hosting, and not this Saturday, next Saturday. They are hosting at DKR, the round one of the playoffs. For the first time in college football, there is a playoff that expands to include home 4 games around the country at homes. Texas gets one. Ohio State hosts Tennessee. Penn State hosts SMU. Notre Dame hosts Indiana. So those 4 teams get home playoff games. Texas is hosting, and it's pretty interesting to see that the line opened with Texas as 11.5-point favorites, and I saw it's gone in some places up to 12.5 already. People are heavy on Texas. Why would you think initially that Texas has moved up? So started with such a big lead against a good team with a good quarterback who's playing well enough. Why do you think why do you think Vegas loves Texas so much?
Rocky, I can answer.
I would normally say home's worth the field goal, but I don't know if home's worth the field goal right now.
Rocky, I can answer that question in one word.
Yes.
Defense.
Okay.
Texas's defense has been absolutely dominant. I think that the Vegas has given Texas a lot of credit for what their defense has accomplished. Okay. Clemson, again, we'll dive into this a little bit more as we dive into this matchup in maybe on Thursday, maybe a little bit next week as well. But yeah, I think Texas's defense has proven they can more than hang with anybody. They're one of the leading, if not the leading defense in the nation right now, going up against really good teams going up against a really good offense to maintain that number one defense in the SEC when you've played Georgia a couple times, when you've had a couple close games and played some good teams. Yeah, I think that's where you're seeing that credit come in.
Yeah, we've seen Clemson give up some big runs against the better teams. If Texas had a stronger run game, that would make me happy. But, but Texas does have the most favorable odds of getting out of the first round. This is from, I think Blake Monroe shared this from On Texas Football, looking at the odds. I have to hit like 20 buttons to share a screen. Looking at the odds, Texas right now has an 82% chance of getting out of the qualifier. Those are pretty good odds. 66% chance of getting past that semifinal. 35% chance of getting to the national championship game. Pretty good.
I like it. And a 20% chance to win it all. Not mad about it. Brian, you bring up Clemson's run D is suspect. Yeah. While we saw Texas completely unable to get any kind of running game going against Georgia, Clemson could be a very different story. We talked about Rocky. That was one of Rocky's keys to the game, is get that running game going. And they couldn't do that against Georgia, but I do agree. I think that's something we'll see Texas have a little more success with against Clemson. Again, we will dive into Texas and Clemson in our upcoming shows, talk more about that. We appreciate y'all being here. One more reminder, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Rocky and I are doing this on our own. We are figuring this out. We always have fun talking with y'all. We always have fun interacting with everybody and just talking about football, y'all. We appreciate being here. So those likes and those subscribes really help us out. Again, on YouTube, we are Fire the Cannon Podcast. On Instagram and Twitter, we are Fire the Cannon and the number 1. So give us a like, give us a follow, and give us your feedback. We love to hear what you think. So, all right, Rocky, do we want to jump into a couple of top stories before we wrap up here?
Absolutely. This is one story that we like to just share anything, right? When we have some top stories, it doesn't have to be sports, but I thought is there anything more athletic than climbing up the side of a building? I have to share this news story. That's a guy named Jermaine whose building was on fire, and just watch this story.
A man scaling a 19-story burning building in Philadelphia with the hopes of reaching his mother trapped inside.
I'm not just going to sit there and let my mom die. I'd rather risk my life falling than let her sit in there and die.
Yeah, he's climbing all the way up the outside of the building.
Sometime after 9:30 p.m., Jermaine received a call from his sister saying his 65-year-old immobile mother couldn't make it out of her apartment on the 15th floor. Jermaine rushed to the scene, but police had blocked off the front door.
They said they was like, the elevator's not working. I'm like, no problem. I'll take the steps. I just want to go make sure my mother is sick. She bedridden. So I need to get up there.
But police wouldn't let Jermaine in. So despite having fractured his hip earlier that day, Jermaine let adrenaline take over, climbing the building's fenced-in balconies, wire cutters in hand.
I was going to cut a hole in the fence to next door and then, to let her go through.
The fire was contained by the time he reached his mother's floor. She reassured him from the balcony that she was okay, and back down he went.
Was she yelling at you because you climbed outside?
She was more shocked. She really not, she don't be surprised at things I do to her. She know I go over and beyond for her.
So back down he went, expecting a quick arrest once on the ground. But an understanding officer let him go.
So he actually did cut me a break because he understood the circumstances. And he knew, when you're adrenaline pumping your mom up there, you thinking she dying, you do anything you can.
That's crazy.
After fracturing his hip.
That's the part that sent me. Are you kidding me? This man fractured his hip and then Spider-Man his ass up the side of a building. That's crazy.
And then the crazy part is when he get there, his mom is like, "I'm good, honey." And he climbed all the way back.
Okay, I'll just go back down the same way I came up. That's bonkers.
My God. And he said he'd rather fall to his death than not try to help his mama.
That's absolutely crazy. I love it.
That's a
feel-good story
this weekend than this guy.
Yeah, this guy? That's a feel-good story right there. I love it.
Crazy. All right, here's another one I want to share with you. Of the 100 best restaurants in the United States, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 of them are in Austin. Have you been to Jay Carver's, Red Ash Italia? Well, everybody knows Uchi. Abba, I don't know, Abba, I don't know, Abba, Jeffrey, Sammy's, Uchi and Uchiko.
I've been to Uchi Uchiko. I've been to Red Ash. Really good Italian food. They're on 4th Street, if I recall correctly.
Okay, this is apparently Austin has 7 of the top 100 restaurants. More than Houston, more than San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio each only have 1.
I think what I'm a little surprised by with this, I think I'm a little surprised that there's, obviously some sushi places on here, but 2 Italian places. I would not have pinpointed Austin as a badass Italian city, but here we are. I kind of like it.
Well, we got one good Italian spot. All right. Sports news, Megan. We all know last weekend that Coach Mac Brown, the Fighting Mac Browns, he was let go from UNC as the head coach. Bill Belichick has agreed to become the new head coach at UNC. There's some people are saying this is true. Some people are saying it's not true, that he had a 400-page quote organizational Bible where he laid out anything and everything that had to happen, including massive investments into his program and the staffing choices and all the things. Some people are saying, oh, he didn't do that. And other people are saying, hell yeah, he did. He's not going to go coach college football at this school without a massive list of expectations. What are your thoughts about I call him Belichick. What are your thoughts about Belichick's taking over for Mac Brown? I think that's 2 different spectrums.
Oof.
Cookies and milk to sledgehammers. I mean,
look, I respect Belichick as a coach. I don't know that this one stumbles me up a little bit. I think there's potential to have a lot of success there just because he was such a good NFL coach. My question is Belichick really going to want to go through the grind of recruiting? And yes, his name will help him out. It'll make it easier for him, but
young ones really still know him as a winning Super Bowl coach, I guess. I mean, because
Tom Brady's still a big deal.
Tom Brady's been gone. He hasn't won anything. So I'm sure they know the history of him, but enough to be inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think families will certainly know. I think people know who Belichick is.
Yeah, the parents will know.
But I question, is he really with all he's accomplished and at his age, is he going to want to go through the grind that is college football recruiting, going on the traveling, getting into those living rooms, shaking hands, kissing babies. That Belichick doesn't strike me as that kind of guy that's going to present super well in your living room. But at the same time, I mean, he's got the experience, he got the rings to show it. So I think the argument could be made that he knows a thing or two about shaping champions. So I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting social experiment. I think the thing that surprised me the most, maybe surprise is the wrong term, but there is some question on, I don't know if you saw this in the quote tweet that you just put up, but there is, this person is saying that he's told Bill Belichick's negotiations with North Carolina include a guarantee that his son, Stephen Belichick, will be named the school's head coach in waiting. UNC is open to the guarantee. Discussions are not a bid to gain leverage for NFL offers, and Belichick is open to the move.
Son is the head coach in waiting?
Yeah, nepotism at its finest. That's an interesting caveat. I've never seen a negotiation like that. I've never seen any kind of twist like that in a contract. Again, this is probably my UTSD rearing its ugly head here, but anytime I hear head coach in waiting, I get the heebie-jeebies. That never worked out for Texas. I still have shudders when I hear head coach in waiting. So
yeah,
best of luck to you, man.
When he's dating someone the age of his granddaughter or something.
Yeah, he does. Again, I got a lot of things to say about that. I'm not sure that right now is the appropriate time, but he's got the name. It's
not hurting anybody.
It's a splashy hire if it happens. It's kind of almost trumps the Deion Sanders to Colorado hire, right? It's a big name. I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting play. Deion Sanders seems to be working out at Colorado after a bit of a rough patch there. Maybe it's just crazy enough to work.
They're ranked in the top 20 right now.
Yeah, maybe it's just crazy enough to work. I'm not sure.
All right, Megan. So we talked about a lot. We broke down the all SEC snub of Mookie, free Mookie. Come on, give him some love. Everybody's like, what's going on? Jade still a top finalist for the Thorpe. We'll know that soon. Volleyball, good luck in the Sweet 16s this weekend, this Friday noon. They were playing Creighton. I'm sure it's probably on one of the ESPNs. We can check. Transfer portal, hot and heavy, Megan. Right now we have at least 6, maybe 7 already in the portal. That's okay. CB called it healthy attrition. It's because they're recruiting. Again, top back-to-back, top 5 classes. Right now sitting at the number 1 class in the country. It's all good. We wish these players the best. Just like Malik Murphy, we saw, he went on to big opportunity at Duke, and now it looks like he's getting even bigger opportunity, maybe Auburn or Miami or somewhere good. I mean, look what Cam Ward just did at Miami. Made himself some money. So good luck to Malik. Recap the SEC championship game. Any last final thoughts on the playoffs or brackets before we sign off? We know we'll talk way more, like you mentioned. We'll talk more Clemson, Texas as we get closer. We're organizing another Mama's episode, Mama's/Daddy's episode. We know we've had so much fun talking to the parents of the players and giving their insight on recruiting and holidays and the commitment and social media and all the things of having players in the program. So we love talking to the parents. We have a couple of new parents lined up that we haven't talked to before. We just had Trevor Goosby's dad last week, Michael Goosby. If y'all missed that episode, you can find it in our list of videos. But exciting. We have some more parents coming on. Anything else before we wrap up, Megan?
No, again, we just really appreciate all being here. I think we've all got a lot of feelings about how things played out in the SEC championship game. But again, Texas fans, we got a lot to be excited about with this program. Texas hosting its first ever playoff game at DKR. DKR is going to be loud. DKR is going to be proud. It's going to be crazy. But in the infamous words of Joe, what was it, the Tiger King, I'm never going to financially recover from this. It's going to be a good one, y'all. We appreciate you being here. As always, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon, y'all. Hook 'em.